This is a CW Spiral, a podcast run by two Barchies and a Bughead. We're your hosts, Sabrina Reed,
Michael Patterson,
and Reed Gaudens,
bringing you history about the network, the latest news, and in-depth spoiler-filled discussions of some of our favorite shows on the CW.
Okay, so welcome to our special pod episode. We're celebrating the 15th anniversary of 90210. If you listened to last week's pod, you know that we're going to be discussing the season 2 premiere. We're just going to take us on a journey because it was out of context for me and Michael, but this is his show. This is his hour. Here you go, Reed.
I'm so excited. I'm so glad that you guys watched this episode because it really is, to me, like a second pilot. I don't know if that comes across to somebody who didn't watch the show, but after season 1, we get this new showrunner. She just comes in on season 2 just with a vision. The aesthetic overhaul is just, every time I watch it, I'm just like, oh, this is the 90210 I love. Even though I love season 1, like there's a special place for it in my heart, but this is when it gets so just like, it has its own character. Like this, suddenly this show that is about a location, the title is a location. Season 1 didn't really, 90210 was really more of like a reference to the original in season 1, which no fault to anybody. There were so many cooks in that kitchen launching this reboot. But after like they overcame that hurdle of like launching a reboot of a massively successful pop culture phenomenon, and it was able to stabilize. There weren't as many eyes on it for season 2. Like the location was able to like be a character in a sense instead of just a show about characters. So that's something I really love about the change in season 2 is like we're at the beach. Like it's more like we're outside. Like we're the teenagers are actually being teenagers and interacting with their surroundings. And I think the biggest and my favorite change is introducing the beach club, which we see for the first time in this episode. Because if you think about some of the most iconic episodes from the original, it's the summer episodes when they're at the beach club and like Brandon and Amji are working there. Like that's just, it's so iconic, and it's not the same at all. It's a lot different. But I think changing their hangout from whatever they did to the Peach Pit in season 1, which is like, that's a crime in itself that we don't talk about enough. Like modernizing the Peach Pit was a choice to say the least. But I think, you know, letting that go to not have that reference to the original and allowing the show to have its own identity was just so important. And I love this episode, and I can't wait to hear what you guys think about it, because I know there are aspects of it that like do not age well, because like late 2000s there's a lot of girl on girl crime on TV. But for me, like it's still just so special because I was their age when the show was on, and looking back now, like I've loved the show for half of my life, and that's a jarring realization that it's literally been half of my life. But just like watching the show, like I knew what it was. It was soap. And this season really leans into the soap factor so much. Like this is a soap opera about kids that are just not behaving as children. It's just great to me.
Well, this is the season, because remember last time we talked about 90210, you'd mentioned that the showrunner came in with binders, and you could really tell that they did do an overhaul, because from what I remember of the pilot, like it really does get you in there, but there's a lot of tension between the characters. I mean, and that serves to drive the plot forward, but like it did have a different vibe watching the season 2 premiere, because I was like, oh, we're friends. Like we're all like, a lot has happened, but like we're friends, we're hanging out. Like I think my favorite moment in terms of friendship really is like the 3 girls, like the 2 come out of summer school and we're hopping in our friend's car and we're rolling down the highway, and just seeing them strolling in a pack together
with ice cream cones.
With ice cream cones. Like it was always a stroll, and I love that because there's something about being a teenager and walking in form with your friends. Like every moment is cued to a music, to like a needle drop. It feels like that when you're a teen, like we're 16 years old, we're walking through the mall, we're strutting as if someone is playing our favorite song. No one is playing a favorite song. But
unless you have your iPod in.
yes. But it's the vibe. Seeing that, I was like, yeah, that was definitely me, my friends, walking through an area, thinking we were it, and we were definitely weren't, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and to follow on from what Reed said, it definitely felt like a relaunch for me. I remember the conversation we did have last year where you said that so many things changed with season 2, and then it felt like a new pilot again, and it really, really did. But because I know a lot of stuff happened in the season 1 finale, we did see that, but the way it was set up was so well that you wouldn't have. We didn't have to see that to understand what was going on. You know, the way when there's a pilot and it's like, oh, such and such fell out over the summer, and we're not friends anymore, and then the season's about them becoming friends again. You definitely felt the through line of that, and that you wouldn't have needed to see season 1. I know that can come off as disrespectful for some shows when they completely reset that you don't need to see what came before, but I think it's also very effective if they do that you don't need to understand everything. I will say I'm impressed at how much I remembered. I was like sitting waiting on Annie to appear, thinking what happened between her and Naomi, and I remembered most of the characters. But I completely agree. You definitely see the change right as it started, particularly because it's mostly from Naomi's perspective. Whereas in season 1, she was kind of like this alluring figure that you saw from Annie's perspective. You only really saw her when like Annie was in and around her. Whereas now it's kind of through her POV, her point of view, her eyes, and you get to see how she feels about things. And at the first scene, you're sitting thinking, okay, when does Annie come in? And then about 2 minutes later, you realize it's not as much her story anymore as it is Naomi's. And that works really well because it added for me more of a more confident, kind of mature kind of approach to the show that wasn't there in the pilot episode. At least it felt more expansive, but particularly because the Peach Pit became the Beach Club, and it felt more grown. It felt more. It kind of had like it had found its footing, almost like a veteran show when it finally stabilized it. It felt like a completely different kind of show, but with all the stuff you loved from beforehand. And I think the thing I felt the most was this disappointment at myself that I never followed through on watching it after, like I said last year, because it definitely, going back into that world, you're like, I definitely could get into this even more so now. It feels even more easily accessible now, and in a more mature kind of expensive kind of way. I really loved it.
Doesn't it just look more expensive? I think I said this last year when we talked about it, that like, I don't know if the budget was different or if the new showrunner just used it better. I still don't know the answer to that question, but I was going to say something that you responded to something you said, Michael.
Naomi.
Yeah. Okay. So it's funny. Oh wait, no. I I gave you guys like the whole rundown of what happened at the end of season 1, completely forgetting that in this episode they do a really good job of like peppering in exposition of what happened. I mean, I guess it does kind of hit you over the head because Adriana is like laying out everything that happened during season 1 in that pool, or like wherever they're walking, she's like going through it still, and it's a reminder to the audience. And then they do a really good job of explaining what happened, because I feel like maybe at this point they assumed like maybe people weren't watching all the way through season 1, and maybe new people would tune in for season 2. But yeah, I think it was a wise decision to position Naomi and Anna Lynn as like the lead, although it kind of was slightly unfair. I think maybe it was the CW's decision to really use Anna Lynn's image to promote the show more, but it was just in the sense that Naomi became a really strong fan favorite character because she's funny, unserious, complicated in a way that Annie, which is no fault to Shanae Grimes, because she's amazing as Annie, and she's a really interesting character. I think maybe fans grew tired of Annie as a character. And I think that's also because they tried so hard in season 1 to position her as the Brenda and Dixon as the Brandon, and they really wanted that to work. And sometimes you just can't completely copy paste history. Like you just can't set those dynamics up, like, because naturally it became like, oh, Naomi is the bigger presence, and she has the more like confident approach, and Anna Lynn's really great at this role and being this mean girl that you for some reason have a lot of empathy for. Like like it was such a wise decision. Like we start the season on Naomi, which is, if you did watch the season 1 finale, it ends with Annie presumably killing a man, and we don't. You're right, Michael. We don't see her for a decent period of time in the episode, and it's like, ooh, what's where did Annie go? Although I think in retrospect, I I feel bad for Annie because I mean she made decisions, but the way that she's ostracized even by her own brother when she's trying to tell him the truth,
Mm-hmm.
and he assumes the worst of her, he believes the rumor, and she's like, you know what, no, I'm done with everybody. But then I feel bad because she hooks up with that senior and he took a photo, and like it's just, Annie's downfall is so hard to watch this season because she makes choices that completely isolate her from her friends. But the whole, when they rallied together, I'm getting way ahead of our discussion, but like her friends rally together to like help her because she gets in a really, really toxic relationship. And anyway, back to the season 2 premiere.
I think for me with Annie, I struggled in certain parts because I did understand like she's carrying the weight of potentially having killed someone. She's like refreshing that page, like, is this person okay? They're okay. And then she finds out that they had passed. But as a girl, no one knows this though. We were snapping at mama, we're snapping at dad. Granted, like she was just trying to open up to her brother, but even then, I was like, I don't know why he did it. There's only one thing that he would think happened because nothing else that he knows happened to you. He would not, go, she must have accidentally committed vehicular manslaughter. And that is why we're out on this cliff. And that's what she's going to tell me. Though, I guess with the attitude, instead of leaping to that she had slept with Liam, we could have leaped to that she's upset because she's been ostracized. Like, and that's what's bothering her. And it's changed her entire perspective on life. And he was like, I'm going through my own stuff. I will say he did not kick her out the car. And usually that's the thing that happens. It's like, find your own way home. In the show, he brought her to a safe, what he thought would be a safe environment. And he just was just like, hang out with the party. I can't do anything with you. I'm not going home. You're not going home. Find something to do. And like that was the end.
If this season had taken place a few years in the future, she would have called an Uber and gotten out of there.
It's half expecting her to just storm out of the car and shut the door.
I know. Every time I watch the episode, I'm expecting her to take the keys from Dixon and leave, but every time it just doesn't happen.
I have to say, I thought Annie was one of the most interesting parts of the episode because having seen the pilot episode juxtaposed with this, one thing I remember so much about her is her bubbly approach and her like cheery, happy-go-lucky attitude, whereas it's a completely different character this time. And of course, you need the context in between. But I do think that sets up quite an interesting season-long story for her. And it's definitely an interesting change considering, meanwhile, you have Naomi, who is still, of course, going through her own stuff, but she's kind of taken over the more somewhat like bubbly lead kind of approach. And I do think it is an odd thing to look back on, but I think they handled it very, very well because there are some characters who are designed to be supporting characters and then they become main characters and it doesn't work because they weren't built for that. Whereas in this case, you see that it can really work while not necessarily taking away from the other main character because Annie's going through her own stuff. She's got her own stuff going on. And both of them did play into the episode really well. I know at first I was kind of frustrated with Annie and like, why are we treating people so harshly? But the more the episode went on and the more you saw how she was just struggling under the weight of everything that happened, you did have some empathy for her. And yeah, of course, she thinks she's done a horrible, horrible thing, but that downward spiral all started because of something she didn't necessarily have control over because she was accused of something she didn't do. And then it all spiraled out of there. Of course, she does harbor some wrongdoing, of course, because she was the one that called the cops on them. And I do think that was a very interesting conversation between her and Dixon. I really like that because you do see both sides of that story. But I guess that just makes it easier to like empathize with all of the characters because, again, I don't have much backstory here and it was completely easy to see what they were all going through and understand them all from different perspectives, if you know what I mean.
I have to give it to my... Oh, wait, you go ahead, Sabrina.
Well, no, you go ahead. It's fine.
I was going to say my queen, Silver. the only one slightly sticking up for Annie, or at least just questioning it. Like, I love how, even though Silver is now friends with Naomi again, the new showrunner stayed so true to who Silver is. Like, I'm gonna hate myself for saying this, but she's like the Jughead of this show. She's like, she's the weirdo. She's the one that questions everything. She's the journalist. She's that person. She's headstrong and knows what she believes in. Even in that tennis scene, the way Jessica just completely embodies Silver when Teddy's talking to them and Naomi's flirting and she's like rolling her eyes. Like, it's just like, I've loved Silver since day one, but she only gets better, especially. But I mean, there's always gray areas because the way that she associates with Naomi, and Naomi is very, very honest. I'll say, I won't say mean. She's very honest, and I'm like, oh, Silver girl, I know you challenge Naomi, but we need to do it a little bit more. It's a slow growth for Naomi. It's a slow growth.
I really like Silver. I think had I been watching when it was airing, she would have been my favorite. I love a rock chick. Mm-hmm. And so like every outfit, I was like, yes. Like, and I liked her attitude. I agree with her and Naomi where she's like the friend. Like, she's listening to Naomi, like she's taking it in, analyzing it, but she's also like, so I don't think Annie's a skank. I think we need to unpack and actually delve into like what's really going on. There is always someone in the friend group is like that. Because you have the loud brash friend who says it like how they see it, whether how they see it is correct. And then you have their more tempered best friend who was like, I think we should reel that one on back because you're doing a lot right now. And like, that's what Naomi and Silver seem to be to me. But I also liked this is not a knock. This is something I did. I liked how shallow it started in the beginning as far as the things that they were talking about. And I liked it because that's very much a thing that I think adult audiences get irritated by, but it's very true of some of the conversations you have as a teenager, where they start off surface level because you're not ready to talk about what's really going on. And then finally, after we've had a few conversations, you open up. So like and just because some of the things that like teenagers would say about adults, the way that they romanticize adulthood, Naomi being like, and he reads, was just like, yes. She's like, what is she, like 16?
16.
Yeah, sounds about right to me with that comment. Like trying to justify this relationship with this incredibly older man talking about you should get yourself like stop. Why are you messing with boys when you could have men? I'm like, Naomi, he needs to be in jail immediately.
I know, because this is the one part of the episode that I'm always like, but to my memory, it doesn't carry over beyond this episode. But yeah, like I can't make an excuse for. Because part of me, like, it's so Naomi because she sees herself as somebody who is not 16 just because of the world she's been raised in and her wealth. And she just views herself as an adult. Like, if you remember from the pilot, she tries to order a drink and her teacher is like, she's underage, don't serve her. And she's like, ooh, how dare you? I'm an adult. And it's like, no, you're still a child. But like, even watching this as a teenager, like just because I understood that it was fantasy, not that makes it okay for that to be something on television, but also considering the time period, but like being their age and watching, especially just not even the whole series, just like this singular episode where they're toasting to being normal teenagers. And I'm like, I'm the only normal teenager in the room. I don't like what I was watching on screen was very much not my reality. Some of the things were definitely happening at my high school, but it wasn't in my world. Like I was not engaged in any of the things that they do. So like I'm watching this as a teen, knowing that this is a soap opera, knowing that this is not real. So it's funny to watch as an adult and understand that I knew it was not right. I knew it was just like this fantasy thing. But as an adult, you watch it and you're like, it feels so weird and wrong that Naomi is beefing with a a wife and mother of 2 children.
Well, now that wife started it because she didn't even know about like the I guess the affair, the dalliance. I was like, ma'am, can these teenage girls just walk past the pool? Why are you deciding that we are just going to start saying something rude? You deserve the comment you got. Was it out of pocket? Yes, but you were out of pocket first.
Naomi's quick-witted response. I think that's why you guys said it summed it up well. That opening scene worked really, really well because there was an awful lot, like you said, Sabrina, kind of like shallow conversation in there. And I think that's why, to go back to what Reed said, they did kind of hit you over the head with the exposition, and you never once felt that because, like, let's be honest, we saw in the tennis scene, Naomi can talk. Naomi knows how to talk. So, like, just think the conversation between the three of them caught us up on all of what happened prior to it very, very well because you totally buy it. I know a lot of modern shows, young adult and teen shows, tend to weigh the exposition on characters that don't talk that much. So you have maybe someone who maybe would say about 3 or 4 words and suddenly they're overwhelmed by trying to tell us all this exposition and you know what's happening, you know what they're trying to do. That never came across here because it just felt like 3 teenagers acting older than they are, talking about their great life and just like catching us up on everything in between. Really, that whole opening scene, it was just such a vibe. It was, you could just sit back and take it all in, and there was a lot to take in, and it never once felt overwhelming.
I love the opening scene, even though it's like Naomi running to a man who could technically be her father.
Oh, yeah.
I love that opening scene because it's a great juxtaposition to the opening of the pilot where it's Andy and Dixon's family in a minivan. I'm like, we're opening season 2, we're on the beach, we're like, this is a show set in California, we're gonna be in California, not in the minivan. Like right off the bat, it just gives you this sense of place that this season is gonna be different. It's gonna operate differently. We're gonna have walk and talks outside leading to the beach. It'll be windy, it'll be probably uncomfortable for the actors, but they're gonna actually engage with the environment that their characters would inhabit. Like I think that's my favorite choice that this episode and season made. But the one thing that I constantly, every time I watch this episode, the one carryover that I'm just like, we could have left that in season 1 is Silver being confused about Ethan. I've never in my life been on board with this, and I'm sorry if there's any 90210 fans out there that liked Silver and Ethan. It was just so random that he was like, it makes sense because when you're a teenager, you just like randomly get a crush on somebody random. You're like, it just comes out of nowhere. So like in a sense, I understand where Ethan is just like looking at Silver at the prom and he's like, oh, I kind of like her. But on like a narrative level, he started dating Naomi. That's where he began. He ended up dating Annie. And I'm like, we can't, like, by the end of season 1, he can't be on to the third girl in this one friend group. Like, it just, like, plowed through so much material, which makes sense why Ethan was written out. As much as I loved Ethan, and Dustin Milligan was great as him, but every time I watch this episode and I hear Silver talking to Naomi about Ethan, I'm like, is this not awkward? And I know they play it off whereas like Naomi has moved on. Like she's like, I'm not dealing with these boys anymore. I'm over it. But I'm like, there's still a level of awkwardness. Like that's your best friend's like first love. It's weird to me. But I also understand where like they needed something to come between Silver and Dixon. But I just never can get on board with Ethan being the carryover off screen. Like these text messages are causing this much drama. Like I can never get on board with the Ethan of it all in this episode. But I guess they needed to like tie it up. But I'm like, I would have been fine ignoring it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it did give Jessica a chance to eat though. Because that scene about not being able to breathe, about Dixon and explaining why, as she realized it's not Ethan, I was like, oh, okay, girl, eat. It's the premiere. You better get the scene. Because it was really, really good.
I love her so much. She's my favorite, if you couldn't tell. She was so good in that scene. And I have to agree, Reed. Ethan was the one part I needed to remind myself on. I was like, now who's this again? And the moment I looked him up, I was like, oh yeah, I remember you told us last year that he was kind of just randomly written out after the first season because he like plowed through so much story in just a short amount of time. it's cool that they kind of, because it was that kind of end of summer, start of school period, they kind of did the same thing with Liam, where you weren't sure whether they were going to be back or not. So it was cool they kind of did that with Ethan, and that you were wondering, will he be back? Won't he be back? And then, no, that was the way to write him at, and that made sense. I understand that, but I know what you mean. I did like the whole Silver and Dixon dynamic. So then the sudden like shift up over just a few text messages then as well. Of course, we all have to blame like Teddy, who has shown up and completely upended things. We lose one character, we get another, and what a whirlwind he turned out to be.
Teddy's drama. Teddy just got here, and he is in the midst, loving it too. Confused about what's happening, but still loving the drama.
Yeah, and the reveal at the end at school, I gave you guys a little tease of this, but like when Annie walks past his car, the close up. Find the word. The close up on his license plate in the car, like that's the reveal. Like that's the car that saw the body in the road after Annie drove away. But neither of them, like she didn't see the car, he didn't see her. Like they don't know. And I watched the show so much, but like it all blends together because I've seen it so much. Like I can't remember how the revelation comes out. I don't know if he puts. I don't remember, but I love that little tease of drama. Like, ooh, he's here. It's him. This is the way you introduce a new character. He was friends with, or he dated Adriana. Naomi likes him. Silver clearly feels some kind of way about him, and that's the relationship that builds. Spoiler alert. Like he's just so already ingrained in this world on day one. Like he's just got so many things on the burners. It's just like the brilliance of a teen drama when they introduce a new character. They just don't do it like that anymore.
No, we're often languishing in the plot, or someone. It's like it's kid number 2 in the back of the room, and maybe by episode 6 we will learn his name, and he'll pine quietly. And then by the finale, suddenly he's the big love interest. Like we saw something in this actor. So couldn't you have seen something earlier? We have gotten actually to this point because now he just seems like the inserting himself for the triangle that needs to happen for 2 seconds in this teen show.
No, I agree. I feel like when you introduce a new character these days, they never become as important to the show as the original cast. And I mean, I guess that's kind of the point. But in old school shows, that really did happen. And I love the way they managed to do this with Teddy, because I hated him when he first showed up. I think that's supposed to be the point. You're supposed to feel a certain way about him. And now that we know, well, we don't know if he knows, but now that we know he's involved in the Big Annie storyline as well, that creates such an aura of like mess about it, because like you can't trust him. He's so unpredictable of a character. He's completely upended everything and just within 40 minutes. So the fact that he could be like closer to the biggest undercurrent of the show, I think that's a great idea. I know I felt so many emotions about this character when he first showed up. None of them were good. I think that was the point. But yeah, they're very, very effective.
I think the biggest criminal offense, I have to bring it up, you guys. I admittedly watched on the DVD, my DVD, which has the original music. I have to bring this up. But then I watched again on the CW's website, not sponsored. And the music changes are just, it's not the biggest deal in the world. Like it's fine. Like if I'm being honest, it's fine. But like it just, as someone who has seen the episode so many times and is like, knows it by the music cues, like I know it even if I don't know what the names of the songs are. Like I just know these songs, and just the strut at the end, the slow-mo strut of them, this is going to be our year, without that One Republic song is just, it gives like Lifetime movie or something. Like it decreases the value of this show. And I need us to get music rights in order. Like what is happening? We need to start talking about it. We need to start putting the pressure, because it's not okay.
The fact that these classic shows can't live on in the way they were meant to be seen is really bothersome, because that's not really a thing these days for modern shows as much anymore. But
they don't even use like popular songs to get around it.
Very true. Like some of the long running shows on the CW in their first season had songs by Rihanna, and then by their final season you don't recognize a single song used in them. That's just, I think, the way the music rights have changed. maybe that means that they can live forever without having to be altered, like
I mean,
90210 was. But
except, not to interrupt you, I'm sorry, but I just
ahead.
like The Summer I Turned Pretty. That's a
Oh,
show where each episode has a soundtrack, and
of
it's not
course.
just like maybe we saved some budget for that big song at the end of the
Hmm.
episode. But for the most part, it's no one's paying for music.
Yeah, it seems to be a network thing as well. I don't know. A lot of streaming shows like Summer I Turned Pretty, even Heartstopper, they all sometimes have recognizable songs on the soundtrack. But network
Sometimes they
TV,
front load it. Like there was one Netflix show where like the first few episodes had popular songs, and then by the end of the season, it was like, who?
But see, that's the thing though, because when we were talking about this before, I all of my like needle drops do take place in the 2000s to the early 2010s. And I'm like, is it because they have like when they do have popular music, it's throughout the entire episode. So it's very hard to place like what moment happened because it's not necessarily during big moments either. Like you just know, because I'm thinking about like I don't remember the song. I feel like if I heard the song, but the Riverdale scene with Archie and Betty in the car was a moment. And if I heard this, if the song changed, if it wasn't the right song if I have no idea if they changed it from DVD from what it aired, I'd be like, wait a second, there was a song here that fit much better. What is this? But we don't do that as often with the big moments that are happening on television anymore. That I can think of. Like I'm like I said, I know they're putting music in here. There's some popular music in here, but there's so much of it that I can't place big monumental moments anymore and connect them to songs. Like so far, nothing has given me the same feeling as "Feels Like Today" by Rascal Flatts and Smallville. When Barton
incredible moment.
running, and I will always remember that because that
Same.
needle drop was everything, and it fit the moment, and it was very pure and fun. And where are we doing? I know the music supervisors are doing their thing, but I need big moments tied to a song.
Yeah, we don't get that much anymore. And it's a shame because network TV was responsible for this movement. Now you rarely see it. I know sometimes you get maybe like vague covers of famous songs, like that Elton John song that was in the penultimate episode of The Flash, but it's a cover that no one knew existed. So maybe that's the way of getting around it. I don't know. But I know music is such a big part of television, and so many songs owe their success over the years to TV shows. Like the Ally McBeal theme song was super popular because it was used in Ally McBeal. Chasing Cars by Snow Patrol was a huge hit because it was used in Grey's Anatomy. It's just, I'm pretty sure the script The Man Who Can't Be Moved owes a lot of its success to Ghost Whisperer. It's just, what are we doing, folks? Like, watching 90210 last night just reminded me that shows can work with music, and they don't work sometimes without it. Not that the replacement songs were bad by any means, but that final scene with the strut was very generic, and I was like, this isn't given generic to me.
Yeah, I'll give them that. They tried to match it, and they did okay, but I'm like, it's just something's missing.
Yeah, it just didn't have the same vibe.
The episode I was considering my favorite episode of the season is I think I talked about this last year. I've definitely told you guys about this. The Halloween episode from season 2. There's a scene where Silver and Teddy are getting really close, and Silver's dealing with a lot because her mom, I believe, has gotten her breast cancer diagnosis by that point in the season, and she's like trying to balance school with taking care of her mom, and she's just really stressed. And Teddy takes her onto the roof of the school, and they hit tennis balls off the roof, and the needle drop is Sweet Disposition by the Temper Trap. And I'm like, I can't in good faith make you guys watch that episode when I know for a fact that song would not be there. It just like it would just take away from the moment.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to
like,
give
I can
us
tell you to listen
though.
to it. I could give you the song, but I'm like, I don't know. I'm glad we watched this one because it really is like a second pilot. It's like a rebirth of this show. But yeah, like I couldn't in good faith let you guys watch that scene without it being exactly as it's supposed to be.
Well, I did for the ending scene. Like I told y'all, I said, "Oh, this is Knit." Paused it, sent it back to the beginning of it, and played "Everybody Loves Me" over it. I was like, much better. Totally makes sense. The strut is on cue. I will say there is one needle drop, like you said, that they kept, which was I'm assuming the song is called "Freakulator." And
so.
I was like, that didn't sound like that. That didn't look like that's what they were dancing to on set, though. Because I was like, this. I was like, the moves are not matching up until they start line dancing a bit, and then it matches up. And I was like, oh, but y'all told to just do your thing, and then we start doing whatever dance coincides with this. So I was like, it's not matching y'all. It's not.
That scene always makes me cringe, but I love it. Like, we all have that one cringy scene from our favorite show. If it's only one, there's probably multiple, but like that scene, I'm always just like, I get what we want to see them have fun. I get it.
Well, we were getting down. We were really we were out there.
Like, I want to see the dance rehearsal. Like, what was that like?
Yes, because it did seem to be, at least, or some of them just really are dancers. There was some that we were popping some moves. We were doing some things, like the actress who plays Adriana was getting down. The same with the actress who played Silver, Jessica. So I'm like,
They're both Jessica.
Jessica. Well, the Jessicas were like, it's my moment.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to get this two-step and a twirl.
It does make me sad, too, that, like, my poor Annie, like, she's there, but she doesn't get to participate in the fun times.
No, they put her in the blazer.
Like, yeah, it does hurt, too, that, like, the end, as iconic as that strut is, it's like, it's Naomi praying on Annie's downfall.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, the girl on girl crime in the first few seasons of the show, until Naomi like learns to recalibrate her feminism.
I was disappointed in Naomi. I was like, you know what? It feels on brand, though. It feels right.
If you're wondering if she will send it, she sends it.
Oh, God.
In the next episode, yeah, she sends it. The episode 2 is called Too Sexed or Not Too Sexed, and she sends the sext.
It was already bad with the senior. That I don't care. I'm sure he'll disappear at some point.
Yeah, he's not a big presence.
Okay, because I was like, she's down. We're just handing her a flask. We're going into this cabana, like, which, by the way, speaking from the lady who was getting into it, Naomi, ma'am, you were not planning your daughter's birthday party in that little tiny thing with the stretch stuff.
Her cabana.
Her cabana. It was just, she's like, I was setting it up for my kid's birthday party. I was like, the baby's getting the party in the cabana.
How many kids fit in there?
In that little room, lies. Why are you really over here? Just a mess. But I did want to circle back to Naomi's relationship with that woman's husband. I will say, I don't think, from my perspective of watching it, they were straddling the line of letting Naomi romanticize it, but also showing that it's a terrible idea. Because I feel like her friends weren't about it, even though she kept going on about, get yourself a real man. And she was giving you like two things about this man that she enjoyed, and there was nothing else there. It was very dry. And then in their talk, when he after she found out that he was married, he was snowing her. But I feel like even someone who was a teenager watching that would be like, girl, run. What? He trying to tell you that he's not married in his heart? Yeah. And like, technically I'm married, but not in my heart. And that like we get each other. And then but I did appreciate too that she's just enough of a teenager to be distracted by the girl she hates. Like, this conversation is over. I hate this girl. I'm leaving because I need to go talk to her.
Yeah, and that's the crux of why Naomi ends it. Not because she realizes like, oh, I'm a minor. Maybe I shouldn't be doing whatever she was doing with that man. It's because like, I don't want to be like Annie. She hurt me by cheating, and I'm not going to do that to that other woman as much as I hate her as well. It's like her sense of justice is skewed toward like personal vengeance, which does change as she gets more fiercely loyal to her friends. And she has a different perspective. It just takes Naomi a minute to like figure all that out. But yeah, her ending it for that, I'm kind of like, you got where you needed to be. The road there was a little jagged. Yeah. Because even like, you can tell like Naomi, like, whatever reason she views herself as older than she is, because when she's talking to Teddy, she's like, what makes you think that we're in high school? And Silver is just has no like conscious reason to lie about her age. And they look at each other like, they both are like, what are you doing? But that's just Silver. Like, she's not going to lie about her age, whereas Naomi wants to present differently to the world because I guess maybe she can, maybe she's been told certain things about her beauty or whatever. And in that sense, I do have empathy for her. That's like someone made you feel like you need to present older than you are, and I feel bad for you.
Mm-hmm.
I think also maybe it's not that deep. It's a soap opera. I don't know.
No, but I know what you're saying. I think that's the kind of potential I saw with her in season 1 as well. It does feel like there's potential there for growth. The road, like you said, is just going to be very, very jagged. She's not going to get there right away. But it sounds 90210 strikes me because she's still growing in season 2 and obviously hits a few hiccups along the way. The show kind of strikes me as it kind of turns into a story about her growth. So it's obviously it's a long journey, but she will get there. And like you said, the end game's the same. She just has an interesting way of getting about to it.
She's very Fallon Carrington Dynasty reboot coded. But I mean, the tones are a little bit different, even though Naruto does because Annalyn's so good at being funny as Naomi, it's not quite as sitcom-y as Dynasty ended up being with Fallon, but there's still comedy with Naomi as she does things that are not right or encounters. She does go through a lot. Was it this season or season 3? I don't know. I can't remember. I think it's season 3. But she does go through a lot, and that does change her. But yeah, that's Naomi. Problematic queen.
I think plot-wise, I think if there was one thing that I was trying to find my way into, as far as a carryover from season 1, it's Adriana's story about how she's a young Hollywood darling, but she doesn't want to be anymore, and she had a baby and she gave it up for adoption. We were hitting those notes by the pool real fast. So Adriana, I'm in the car, but I don't know if the seatbelt is buckled yet for me. And then with her and Naveed and navigating celibacy and their relationship and her being about it and him thinking that he has the green light when he's not even on yellow. We're on a full red light. I thought that was interesting, especially because it added, for Naveed at least, and Dixon, some humor as we try to set up this romantic scene in a cabana for her. And so that he could have his moment. And I was like, no, she said no. We're not doing that, but she stood her ground on it, and he was like, I'm fine. It's like, you're not fine about it, but you're gonna be fine about it. That's where we are. But I will say, I think, I know you said that the relationship actually ends up being between Silver and Teddy, but with Adriana, and I was like, maybe I don't know her, and she is just flirty or just, but when I was like, when you're dancing, you're not dancing like you have a boyfriend. You're not like her and Teddy on the dance floor. I was like. And Naveed was just watching. I was like, Naveed, I feel like we're a little too calm. She's breaking it down with Teddy, and we need space enough between her and Teddy.
Yeah, her no drama Adriana era was aspirational and short-lived. She before Silver and Teddy get together, Adriana and Teddy do kind of have I don't think they officially get together, but if they do, it's doomed. And I don't think she cheats on Naveed. I think she considers, just because she's so pulled to Teddy and their history. There is a scene where I can picture it. They're on the beach in Dreams by the Cranberries plays, and it's so hard to root for them, knowing that Naveed's gonna get hurt by it, and there's really no path forward for this couple. I really don't think that they get together officially, because Silver and Teddy do get together by the end of this season. But it's also really funny watching this episode in particular, knowing that all of the all the pairing shifts that happen throughout the series, eventually Adriana dates Dixon and Silver dates Naveed and Annie dates Liam. And just seeing it, how all the dynamics are now, and knowing what happens in the future, it's oh, you guys don't even know what's going to hit you.
That's wild, all the combos.
That is. That's so teen dramas though. And then you just find yourself rooting for more couples than others. You find the one that you really enjoy or two that you really enjoy. I did like Teddy and Adriana. I thought they had like great chemistry, which is why I was like, Naveed, I think you should be scared. But I do find it interesting how she says in the episode that they've known each other for years, but they were only together for one summer over summer camp, and he's her first. I was trying to put that relationship together because they're immediately happy to see each other. Like, I didn't know you were here, and I was like, but she said she's known him forever. I was like, do y'all keep in contact? It didn't seem like you kept in contact, but we're immediately like this. We're here now. So it was interesting.
I don't know. They played a little fast and loose with those dynamics. I never really thought about that. That's interesting. Yeah. Adriana was real busy in season 1. So it makes sense that she would have lost contact with it. Like, she was dealing with a near fatal overdose and pregnancy and she got a lot going on in season 1. So but we're happy to see her attempting to thrive.
Yes,
the attempt was really, it's good. Again, the dance scene was great for everybody.
Just to like give you, because you brought up her getting the script was kind of a lot, because I don't think she really pursues much acting work in season 1. She tries to, but her addiction really prevents her from doing anything. Like, I don't even, Annie has to step in for her at the school play for Spring Awakening. I've never really thought about that she just like is randomly getting scripts. I'm like, or how? She does end up, spoilers, she ends up dropping out of school in season 3 because she has a hit song. She becomes a pop star, but then she quickly is disgraced.
No.
By season 4, she is working at Liam's bar. So, I mean, that's the character arc of Adriana Tate Duncan.
Lesser water roller coaster.
I know, quite a ride.
Yeah,
it's a lot. She goes through a lot, but she's like, she's not one of my favorite characters, but like the more I watch, I'm like, she's so underrated and like fun, and just like she's definitely, for any OG 90210 fans out there, she's like the Val counterpart. That's Tiffany Thiessen's character that comes in after Brenda leaves, and she's just bad to the bone. She hates everybody, and she wants to take them all down secretly from the inside. And I'm like, ugh. And they really get there with Adriana in season 3 when Silver and Naveed are dating, and she's jealous and she wants Naveed back, and she's trying to just take Silver down. It gets real personal and real bad, but like in a soap opera way that is like genuinely like shocking. And like, I don't want to say funny because it's not funny. I'll tell you guys off pod because I don't want to say it on the podcast.
Sounds like a lot.
Yeah, she's a fun character.
Nice. I think, okay, before like anything else though, I did want to talk about the devices. It really puts you in a place and time with those sidekicks. And I think I saw a BlackBerry. It was just my heart. Like, we really like, is that you left your phone at the beach? And she's like, oh, and Teddy's just, he read the text message, which invasion of privacy, but also very easy, because what is a code on that type of phone? It just sits open, especially if she just had it open while she had already been staring at it. Like, he would have read her text message. But I loved seeing the devices. I loved seeing the style, which did seem a little bit more elevated. Like, they were better dressed.
Yes, that's another aspect visually that changed for the better. Like, all kinds of aesthetics changed. Like, just the way that it's filmed, even the typeface of the credits is different. Like, visually it's just different, but the style thankfully changed. Season 1 wasn't as glamorous. It played a little too realistic to like what we would have seen in our high schools. But like, they were like, if Gossip Girl can have a fashion budget, why aren't our girlies dressing up? And I respect them for that. Because they put Silver in that chunky belt. Like, no more of she had those just 2007 Ashley Tisdale red carpet looks, and it was like, it's a vibe. But this is 90210.
Yeah, she was definitely given scene kid, and from the pilot I remember, and now it's very refined rock. Like
The bob.
the Rihanna bob, that took me out when Dixon said that she's yay high, but the Rihanna bob is like, not him being accurate. It was. Oh, there were some great lines actually in this. But I liked when great insult from Naomi when the skater just falls in front of her and she steps over him. She says, "Get a car."
Oh, classic Naomi.
That's great. I think I rewound that like 3 times, but I just couldn't. The delivery was just so great. And then she just continues on with their conversation.
She's so like Anna Lynn is so good at that role. Truly never left a single crumb. Never met a crumb, didn't know the crumbs. She wasn't leaving them. Just fully devoured all 5 seasons.
Good for her.
Yeah, and so natural as well. Like I know a lot of them shows when they try to do comedy, they can lean into it too much and can get a little silly and sitcom-y. Whereas that just felt totally in line with the tone they were going for. It just honestly felt like everything came together, not just in this episode, but just for the show itself. It did. I like the word you guys used, elevated. It really did feel like it wasn't completely unrecognizable from what the first season was, but it felt like it had grown to where it needed to be and find itself. And everything fell into place. And I think the focus on Naomi was probably that guiding aspect of it, because she was kind of a more colorful character to like lean into and give it more, what's the word? Character driven storylines in a more like comedy kind of way, if you know what I mean. Like I said, not silly, but like there was more color in the storyline. And that reminds me, I did want to ask you, Reed, did you know it was going to be reinvented when you were watching season 2, or was it like, whoa, what's happening?
Here's the tea about how I watched. I didn't watch this episode live. I must have been at like a cousin's volleyball game or something, and I missed it. And I remember I couldn't watch it. I was dying. I was like, I need to see this episode, but I couldn't watch it until the next day after school. And in psychology class, my best friend was like telling me about like everything that happened, and she was telling me about the new opening title sequence, and I was like, what? I just was like, what? Like so much what? I need to see this. Like I couldn't wait to get home. But I think I knew the changes were afoot, like the new showrunner and Ethan leaving. I knew all that going into season 2, but I wasn't prepared for all of the like visual relaunch changes. Not in a bad way. Like I was just like, oh, my favorite show got better. So yeah, like I wasn't expecting it. Ugh, I wish I had watched this episode live. You know, whatever. Thank God for DVRs.
Yeah.
I have a question too. So like, because you've praised a lot of the actors on the show, if they were given respect and like in contention for awards, who would you think would have gotten like an Emmy if they actually paid attention to 90210 in a respectful way?
Anna Lynn. There's a storyline where she is sexually assaulted, I believe season 3, and the acting that she does, apart from like the just fun like comedic, witty Naomi lines, she really delved into that in a really real way, because earlier in that season she had falsely accused that teacher of coming on to her, and then when that comes out and he does that to her, he's like, well, nobody's going to believe you now because you cried wolf. Wait, no, that's at the end of it happens at the end of season 2. So season 2, she falsely accuses him, and then she deals with that in season 3. And the way that she just like throws herself into the uglier, realistic parts of Naomi was really amazing. Like just so good. I think Anna Lynn would have gotten some awards attention.
Sounds like a tough storyline, though. My goodness.
Yeah, they really went there. The changes in season 2 and 3 really highlighted what worked from the original. I think season 1 tried to play too closely to the early high school seasons of the original, where it was like issues based, very just like there was still like that melodrama soapy stuff, but it was very like about the family and like those kinds of stories, whereas season 2 kept when you think of 90210, you think of the original cast in high school, those early days. That's what everybody thinks of. But I think narratively, you think of like the crazy 90210, like people are getting kidnapped, people are getting drive-by shootings when they get home from Hawaii, like all these house fires, just like crazy things that happen in 90210. And that didn't happen until they were in college and after. And I think this rebranding of the reboot perfectly married the more simple, bare bones early seasons of the original with the totally like soapy bonkers rest of the series. And that was such a I'm never gonna stop praising Rebecca Sinclair, was her name at the time, the way that she just came at the show with a vision and was like, we're gonna do a teen soap right. She did her 2 seasons and she was like mic drop, and like she did the thing, like she really did it. And these 2 seasons just chef's kiss. Like I wish more people had watched, but I even remember when the season 3 premiere happened and there was an article on E! Online that was like, how is nobody watching 90210? Like Adriana just got into a limo crash and her duet partner died and she stole his song. Like it's just so trashy and fun. Like how is nobody watching this show? And I'm like, I don't know, E! Online, I don't know.
Wow, this is why Sims are great.
Yeah, it's just like you never expect what's gonna happen, but it's so fun.
So I think that means that we need to watch more 90210 on the pod.
Yeah.
More 90210 episodes.
See, I'm just glad that you guys enjoy it. Not that I ever doubted you, because I know you guys can enjoy things for what they are. But I'm just so happy that like I can share this with more people than just my best friend, because she's the only one that ever watched it with me. The only person I knew that watched 90210.
Oh, okay, so I'm gonna actually put something out to our listeners then. As far as 90210 episodes, if you are a big fan of the show, what episodes should we add to our rotation of things we check out in our season 3?
Yes, yes, tell us.
Yes.
Definitely. I'm eager to watch more, Ty. Hopefully we can follow through on it this time, because I know I made that promise last year, but I'd love to revisit this world again. It's so good.
We had a lot going on. We had another binge watch going on. It's okay.
Well, this is very try.
Yeah.
Our schedules are a little clearer this time.
No, not to shade CW, but
I know. Speaking of the CW,
I know. We might as well just remind everybody. We are taking a break, so we will be gone the entirety of September after this special pod episode drops. We'll be back on October 2nd. That'll be the start of our season 3. And we are in a new era. That era means that you will not be receiving reviews of whatever CW has going on over there. However, you will get CW news and CW content and, surprise, WB content. When we get closer to our launch, we'll let you know what we're doing. But we're excited.
We are excited. Mm-hmm. New era.
Yeah.
New era. New vibe.
Going into the vault.
Yes, we have to, because they don't have anything.
The only place to go.
And we really dug around in that vault. Just throwing that out there.
Our first watch is going to be a deep cut. So we hope you join us on that journey.
Get ready.
Once we reveal it. But thank you guys for listening and for watching. We're the CW Spiral. I'm Sabrina.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Reed.
Bye, y'all.